I'm Eva Marlowe. I'm 32 years old. I've built a career in finance, managed multi-million-dollar portfolios, and made partner in Manhattan without a single shortcut. But somehow none of that has ever been enough for my father. The annual Marlowe family reunion was coming up, and this year I went all in. I bought him a brand new Mercedes. Black luxury, exactly the model he once admired. I told myself it was a peace offering. Deep down, it was a final attempt to be seen, to be chosen. What he didn't know, what no one knew, was that inside my purse was a sealed envelope, a DNA test. The truth about why he's never been able to love me the way I begged him to. By the end of that night, everything would change, the mask would drop, and I would finally take back the power I spent 32 years handing over. Before I tell you what happened, tell me in the comments, have you ever bent over backwards for someone who refused to see your worth? If this sounds familiar, stay with me. My story might help you finally let go. I grew up just outside Boston, in a house that was big, beautiful, and cold. From the outside, we looked like money and harmony. On the inside, it was a stage. And my father, Victor Marlowe, ran the script. He built his real estate empire from nothing and never let us forget it. He measured people by their utility, not affection. Warmth wasn't part of his vocabulary. Respect had to be earned. Love conditional. My mother, Caroline, was kind when he wasn't around, but when he was, she disappeared behind her smile. She kept the peace, never pushed back. My older brother, Daniel, was the golden child. Played football, joined Dad's company. He got praised for just showing up. My younger sister, Lily, learned to read the room and stay out of the blast radius. She made herself small, strategic, sweet. Me, I worked harder than all of them. Graduated top of my class. Got a full ride. Worked 2 jobs, became a partner in a Manhattan finance firm by 32, and still when I told him all he said was, "Let's see how long it lasts." Markets are volatile. So I didn't tell him this time. I bought him a car instead, a black Mercedes S-Class. The kind he once said was a real power car. It cost almost a year's salary. I told myself it was a gift. The truth, it was a final Hail Mary. I planned it carefully. Had it delivered to a local dealership, drove it over the day before the reunion. Mom was out. That was the point. I wanted it to be just us. No distractions, no excuses. He opened the door in golf clothes, looked at me like I was a meeting he forgot to cancel. "Eva, the reunion's tomorrow." "I know, I just wanted to give you something early." I handed him the box. The Mercedes key inside gleamed like a trophy. He opened it slowly, suspicious, then stunned. I led him to the window. It was right there, flawless, gleaming in the driveway. For 1 second, I saw something shift in his face, but then it was gone. He walked outside, circled it like an investor, not a father. Asked about insurance, maintenance, said the steering felt loose for a German car. Then pulled it into the garage out of view. Back inside, he handed me the key and said, "You must be doing very well to waste money like this." And just like that, he walked away. I stood there alone, clutching the key, trying not to let it show. Not the disappointment, the confirmation. Because in my purse was the envelope. A DNA test I took 3 months ago, just out of curiosity. But the results didn't match. The markers were off. So I tried again with hair I'd taken from his comb. This time, the answer was final. Probability of paternity, or Victor Marlowe wasn't my biological father. And suddenly, everything made sense. The distance, the criticism, the way love always felt out of reach. It wasn't just in my head. That night, I lay awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling. The Mercedes sat locked in the garage. The envelope pulsed in my purse like a secret itching to detonate. Tomorrow, I'd sit across from my whole family. And for the first time, I wouldn't be the one trying to earn my seat. The next morning, I woke up before anyone else. The house was quiet in that unnatural way big houses are. You could almost hear your thoughts echo. I walked past the garage on the way to get coffee. The car was still there, sealed behind the heavy oak doors like it had never happened. Like I had never happened. By noon, guests were arriving. It was always the same extended relatives, my father's business partners, people I didn't recognize, but had probably earned their seat at the Marlowe table. These weren't reunions. They were showcases. Everyone had a role. Daniel played the successful heir, charming loud enough to be impressive without seeming arrogant. Lily smiled through conversations, guiding them away from anything tense. My mother floated like a hostess with a secret. And me, I walked in wearing a navy blue dress that screamed, respectable, not needy. Tailored, modest, expensive. I spent 3 weekends finding it. It made me feel like I had armor. I'd barely made it through the door when Aunt Meredith cornered me. Eva, I heard you moved offices. What are you doing now? Same firm, just promoted. She blinked. Oh, how nice. That's lovely. Then she turned to ask Daniel about his lake property. It was always like that. My wins were footnotes, his were headlines. I finally found Lily near the back patio, refilling drinks with mechanical precision. You bought him that car, didn't you? She whispered. I nodded. She handed me a glass of wine and said, He's been giving tours of it all morning like he bought it himself. I looked through the window, and sure enough, there he was, pointing out the dashboard, popping the hood, laughing with one of his old business rivals like it was his latest acquisition. Like I didn't exist in the transaction. He didn't tell anyone I gave it to him. Not once. Not even when Daniel came over and said, Dad, that car is sick. What made you finally upgrade? And Victor, without even glancing at me, said sometimes success should be seen. Then clapped Daniel on the shoulder. Lily watched my face. I don't know why you still try, she said quietly. It's not you. He's broken when it comes to you. I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled. Dinner was called just after sunset. The long table was set up in the main hall like some twisted family banquet. Place cards, crystal glasses, silverware you were supposed to know how to use. My name was placed toward the far end between my cousin's fiancé and one of Victor's newer business associates. Daniel and his wife were seated near my father's right hand. Lily, as always, played the buffer. I sipped my wine. I made small talk. I kept my back straight, and I watched. I watched Victor direct the room like a conductor. He'd ask someone about their career, then pivot the conversation back to one of Daniel's latest deals. He joked about legacy, about bloodline, about how good instincts run in families. At one point, my mother gently tried to mention my promotion. Ava's firm just... Victor cut in immediately. Did you see that zoning approval in Cambridge, Michael Big, opportunity for people in the right position? Just like that, I was erased. Again. I took a bite of salad and tasted nothing. Then came the moment that nearly cracked me. He raised a glass, tapped it gently. I want to say how proud I am of Daniel, he said, eyes shining. The Riverside project shows real guts, real instinct. It's not easy to build something that lasts. He turned to Lily. And to Lily, who somehow balances her family, her volunteer work, and keeping all of us sane. You're the heart of this family. Then he looked past me. And to everyone here who knows that legacy isn't just about titles or trophies. It's about building something that carries your name, that reflects who you are. People clapped. My ears rang. No mention of me, none. Not even the car. Not even the gift that should have made me visible. I put my fork down, checked the weight of my purse at my side. The envelope was still in there, still sealed, still screaming. I thought about leaving. About slipping out the back, calling an Uber and never returning. But then I caught Lily's eye. She raised her glass toward me barely, almost imperceptibly. Not a toast, a signal. I see you. And just like that, the rage stopped burning. It crystallized. If I was invisible to them, then I'd become unforgettable. After dinner, the guests migrated toward the sitting room like it was choreographed. Victor led the flow, of course, flanked by Daniel and 2 of his colleagues, laughing at something that probably wasn't funny. I stayed behind a moment under the chandelier. My wine glass wasn't even half empty, but I needed something stronger. I headed toward the side table where they kept the bourbon. That's when I heard it, Victor's voice low but clear, leaking through the cracked door of his study. She's always been desperate for approval, he said. The car was a stunt. That's what happens when you give someone too much independence, they forget who made them. Another voice murmured something I couldn't make out. And Victor responded, if I hadn't married Carolyn, Eva would have been raised by some broke engineer in California. Everything she has, her name, her education, her presence in this world, it's because of me. I froze. Not just from the words, but from the certainty in them. He wasn't just rewriting my story, he was erasing it. And it wasn't a slip, it was what he believed. Or maybe what he needed to believe to justify how little he gave me. The bourbon I poured sat untouched in my hand. I turned and nearly bumped into Daniel. He must have seen something on my face. "You okay?" he asked too casually. I didn't answer. He stepped closer. "If this is about the car." "It's not." He looked annoyed now, lowering his voice. "Look, I know you've been asking Mom weird questions lately. About college. About the past. What are you digging for?" I didn't respond. "Eva, whatever you're trying to prove with the gift or your job, or these conversations, it's just noise. You're disrupting a system that works." That word system. Like we were cogs. Like we were pieces in Victor's machine. "You think this works?" I asked. "This isn't a family. It's a company with a tyrant CEO and no HR. Daniel stiffened. "Don't do this here. Don't make a scene. Just be grateful. Some of us have real responsibilities to carry." He walked off before I could speak. I stood there alone, bourbon still in my hand, but all I tasted was rust. That was the moment I knew I wasn't going to leave quietly. I wasn't going to let him control the narrative. Not one more time. Back in the main room, Victor had resumed his throne armchair, brandy in hand, talking about market confidence and legacy, like it was scripture. I sat across the room next to Lily. She leaned over and whispered, "You heard something, didn't you?" I nodded. Her eyes dropped to my purse. She exhaled. "Are you going to—" I didn't answer. "If you do," she said softly, "do it clean. Don't let him pull you into a spectacle. Make it a statement." That's Lily, always finding a way to hand you strength without making it a lecture. Victor cleared his throat. That signature throat clear he does before a closing speech. Everyone quieted like it was instinct. Before we moved to the garden for the annual photo, he began. "I want to say how proud I am of the legacy we're building." He nodded at Daniel. "My son is redefining what vision looks like in real estate." Then Lily. "And my daughter reminds us all that leadership includes grace." Pause. Brandy raised, eyes skimming right past me. Some people chase awards titles or attention, but real success is quiet, rooted in tradition, in blood. There it was again, blood, like a private joke only he was in on. Everyone laughed politely. They didn't know, but I did. And suddenly, the moment became still not fragile, but focused. I stood. The motion alone made the room quiet again. Victor raised an eyebrow. I stepped forward calm, measured. Before the photo, I said, voice steady, "I'd like to offer a toast, too." People murmured, surprised, curious. I held my glass untouched. Didn't raise it, just held it. Then reached into my purse, pulled out the envelope, sealed, clean, heavy. For 32 years, I said I've chased something I was never going to catch my father's approval. I twisted myself into someone I thought he could finally love, but nothing was ever enough. Victor sat up slightly, not alarmed, but calculating. 3 months ago, I found out why. I placed the envelope on the table, right next to his untouched dessert. I took a DNA test, then another one just to be sure, and it turns out Victor Marlowe is not my biological father. Gasps, glasses hitting tables, a sharp breath from my mother. Victor stared at the envelope like it might catch fire. Everything suddenly made sense, I continued. The constant distance, the criticism, the way love was always something I had to audition for. I stepped back, not dramatic, not shaken, just done. "This," I said, tapping the envelope once, "is yours. Happy Father's Day." And then I turned. No dramatics, no slamming doors. Just the sound of my heels against the marble floor. And a silence so thick it felt like walking through fog. As I crossed the threshold and stepped outside, I heard chairs scrape. Voices rising behind me. But I didn't look back. I didn't need to. By the time I reached the Mercedes, the world felt eerily quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't come from peace, but from something breaking so violently that sound can't catch up yet. I opened the door, slid into the driver's seat, and closed it gently, like noise might shatter the spell I was under. My hands rested on the steering wheel steady. My breathing was calm. Too calm. It was like my body knew you've already done it. There's no going back now. I hadn't started the car. I just sat there letting the silence fill me like water in a cracked vase. Then the front door burst open behind me. He came out fast, envelope in hand, flapping in the wind like some shredded piece of armor. Victor Marlowe, my not father, still trying to control the story after I'd already rewritten the ending. He looked different. Not powerful, not polished, unstable, unmasked. Ava, he barked. He was holding the test results like they were a lie that could be scolded into submission. This is what you do. You bring this garbage into my house in front of everyone. I didn't respond. I didn't roll down the window yet. I watched him through the glass. Not angry, not afraid, just done. He stalked closer, expression tightening. His voice got louder. You want attention that badly? You want to embarrass me, your family. That word again, family. Like it was a club I should be ashamed to lose membership in. I lowered the window halfway. Cool air rushed in along with the heat of his outrage. I told the truth, I said quietly. He stared at me like he couldn't believe I was staying calm. Like calmness itself was disrespect. You think this changes anything, he snapped. You think some test undoes the last 30 years. No, I said, but it explains them. He blinked. His mouth opened then closed. His hands dropped to his sides, envelope still dangling in one. Behind him, silhouettes had gathered near the door, guests, relatives, people who'd always accepted the story as it was told. Now, watching the fallout mouths, tight faces, pale. My mother was there. Still, frozen. Her arms crossed, lips, trembling eyes locked on the ground. She looked like someone who'd waited too long to speak and now didn't know how to. Victor stepped forward again. I gave you everything, he said. My name, my roof, my connections. You wouldn't be where you are without me. You mean I wouldn't exist under your shadow, I replied. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't flinch. But let's be honest, you never saw me as yours. You didn't raise me. You tolerated me. He winced. It was subtle, but it was there. The silence stretched. I could feel the house behind him holding its breath. Ava, he said this time quieter. Do you really think you're better off without this family? Without me? I thought about the hours I spent crying in bathrooms after his constructive criticism, about the times I achieved something and braced for him to undercut it, the birthdays he missed, the praise he gave my brother for breathing and me for bleeding. I didn't need to answer. I just turned the key. The engine hummed to life. He stepped back. Maybe he thought I'd drive away right then. But I didn't. I stayed parked staring at the man who had haunted me for 32 years. Not yelling, not pleading. Just waiting for him to hear it. I spent most of my life thinking I was broken, I said. That something in me made you cold. I thought if I just tried harder, if I got smarter, more successful, less me, that maybe one day you'd love me the way you love Daniel. Or even Lily. He didn't speak. And now I know, I continued, it had nothing to do with who I am. It had everything to do with who I wasn't. I watched the truth hit him. Not just that I knew, but that I wasn't afraid to say it. Out loud, in front of everyone. From the corner of my eye, I saw Lily standing behind the front door. She wasn't crying. She was still, solid, like a tree refusing to fall. My mother finally moved forward slowly, as if crossing some invisible line. She called my name once, Eva. I turned my head slightly. Her voice was hoarse. Please don't leave like this. I almost softened. Almost. But then I remembered all the years she stayed silent. All the times she looked away while I sank. You had 32 years to say something, I said. You said nothing. She looked like she'd been slapped. But she didn't deny it. She didn't defend him. She just stood there, hands at her sides, face wet. Victor took another step, and for the first time I saw it. Not anger, not pride. Panic. Not the panic of a man losing a daughter. The panic of a man losing control. And that's when I knew I had won. Not because he admitted anything. He never would. But because the version of me who still needed his permission to feel worthy, she was gone. I put the car in reverse. The Mercedes glided silently down the long driveway headlights, catching glimpses of expensive landscaping and carefully curated perfection. Victor didn't chase me. He just stood there, envelope in hand, rage curdling into something too messy to name. I didn't look back again. I didn't need to. I didn't go back to my apartment that night. I drove for hours. Past Boston, past any place with street names I recognized. Just highway and silence. At one point, I pulled off near the coast and parked facing the water. The sea was black and endless. It felt like the only thing big enough to hold what I was feeling. The messages kept coming. 27 missed calls by midnight. Texts from Daniel alternating between threats and guilt trips. From my mother, Ava, please. This isn't how we handle things. And from Victor, Nothing. He never reached out. The next morning, I called in sick to work and checked into a quiet little inn near Rockport. No name recognition, just soft sheets and a window that let in the sound of the ocean. I left my phone on silent and didn't open my laptop. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to go completely still. And then 3 days later, Lily showed up. She didn't knock. She texted, "I'm in the lobby, no pressure." I hesitated, then went downstairs barefoot in leggings and an old sweater hair a mess. She stood holding a paper bag and a coffee with my name on it, spelled wrong. She handed me the coffee. "You look like shit." I smiled. "I feel better than I have in years." We sat on the patio. Wind in our hair, ocean somewhere beyond the dunes. "I told Mom where you were," she said. "She wanted to come but figured you wouldn't let her in." She figured right. Lily didn't argue. She pulled a small notebook from her bag and set it between us. "It's hers," she said. "Old diary, from the year you were born." I stared at it for a long moment before picking it up. The pages smelled like attic, dust, and something sweeter underneath. I flipped it open. There, in shaky cursive, was a single line underlined in red. "He doesn't know, and I don't know if I'll ever tell him." Below that, more pages, torn entries, regret bleeding through ink. "I found it last year," Lily said. "Didn't know what to do with it. I thought maybe she'd come clean, or maybe you'd never want to know." She never said a word, I whispered. She was afraid, she said, of him, of breaking everything. I closed the book. "She let me blame myself." "I know," Lily said. "She's sorry, but I know that's not enough." It wasn't, but it was something. We sat in silence for a while, sipping coffee that was getting cold too fast. I finally looked at her. "Do you think he suspected?" Lily shrugged. "Maybe, but knowing Victor, he buried it. He needed you to stay small so no one else would notice." It landed so clearly. He never said it out loud. He didn't have to. He knew I didn't belong, and he punished me for it every year in 1,000 invisible ways. It was strange how grief and relief can live in the same breath. We walked the beach later that afternoon, not saying much, just being. That was always Lily's gift, silence without judgment. That night, I checked my phone. 3 voicemails from Daniel, all sharp-edged and performative. One from Caroline, tearful. She didn't ask me to come back. She just said she was sorry, that she loved me, that she hadn't known how to be brave. And one from a number I didn't recognize. I pressed play. The voice was cautious, gentle. "Eva, my name is Thomas Brenner. I think I may be your father." I froze. He spoke slowly, said he didn't want to intrude, that he'd seen my email, the one I sent months ago when I first got the results, never really expecting a reply. He said he lived in Seattle, that he'd never stopped wondering, that he had a daughter, my half-sister, who was eager to meet me if I ever wanted that. I sat there, phone pressed to my chest, heart hammering. The door I thought had shut forever was open. Over the next few weeks, I began to rebuild my life, not just externally, but internally. I went back to work, took on new clients, but this time I stopped hiding my personal life like a wound. I told my therapist the whole story, all of it. She didn't flinch, just nodded and said, "This is where your story starts over." I sent a message to Thomas. We agreed to take it slow, start with calls, maybe meet in person by the end of the year. He sent me a photo of my sister. Her smile looked like mine. Caroline reached out again, not to justify, but to listen. We met at a cafe in Cambridge. She cried through most of it. I didn't. I just sat there and told her how it felt to grow up in a house where I was always reaching for something that wouldn't reach back. "I should have protected you," she said. "You should have told me," I replied. She nodded. And to her credit, she didn't beg. She just said, "I hope you'll let me earn your trust back, even if it takes the rest of my life." For the first time, she sounded like someone who meant it. Victor never called, not once. He didn't apologize, didn't deny. But I heard from Daniel that he was furious about the fallout. Some clients pulled back. A few board members raised questions about character. The cracks were finally showing in his empire. And honestly, I didn't care. Because by then I was already gone, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. For the first time, I was no longer a daughter chasing crumbs. I was a woman standing in her own story. It's been 6 months since that dinner. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago. Sometimes it feels like I never left that room, still standing under the chandelier, still holding the truth like a loaded weapon. But I did leave. And every day since I've kept walking, I moved apartments, not far, just enough. A place with more light, fewer memories, and a balcony where I can see the skyline breathe. I sold the Mercedes. Not because I couldn't bear to keep it, but because I didn't need it anymore. I used the money to take 2 weeks off. I went to Portugal, sat alone in cafes, watched the sun sink into the Atlantic, and reminded myself I don't have to earn rest. I don't have to prove I deserve joy. I'm still working, I love what I do. But now, when I land a deal or crush a meeting, I don't imagine Victor watching proudly. I don't imagine anyone watching. I do it because I want to. That's the difference. Lily and I talk every week now, really talk. We're not the same people we were in that house. She started therapy too. Says it feels like finally exhaling after holding her breath for 20 years. Sometimes we laugh about the roles we played. Sometimes we cry. Sometimes we just sit in silence on the phone and that's enough. She sends me photos of our niece updates from Mom. Not Caroline, not Mother, just Mom. Slowly, we're finding a new way to be a family. And Caroline, we're working on it, one conversation at a time. She showed up with a box a few weeks ago. Letters, photos. One of me as a baby, not in the Marlowe house, but on a beach with Thomas, my biological father. I was maybe 8 months old. He was holding me like I was the only thing in the world. The kind of hold Victor never gave me. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I picked up the phone and called Thomas. Our first in-person meeting was quiet. No grand declarations, no tears. Just 2 people sitting across from each other, trying to bridge 3 decades of absence with nervous smiles and shared DNA. He told me he never knew, not for sure, that when Caroline left, he thought she'd moved on, that he respected her privacy, her choices, that he'd always wondered. We took a walk around Lake Washington, talked about books, about regrets, about his daughter, my sister Ailey. She's 29, a teacher, engaged, and absolutely nothing like me. And somehow we clicked anyway. I met her the next day. She hugged me before I could even say hello. "Welcome to the family," she whispered. And just like that, the wound began to close. Not healed, not erased, but clean enough to breathe. People ask me if I regret what I did that night, if I wish I'd handled it more privately, or waited, or softened the blow. And the answer is no, because for 32 years I was silent, polite, strategic. I begged with my achievements. I bargained with my pain. That night wasn't an explosion, it was an exhale. I didn't set out to destroy Victor. That wasn't the point. The point was to stop letting his version of me win, to stop shrinking so he could stand tall, to stop bleeding for applause that would never come. And yes, he paid a price, socially, professionally. His myth cracked a little, but the bigger change wasn't in him. It was in me. I walk differently now. I speak more slowly. I say no without guilt. I rest without apology. I understand, finally, that worth isn't something you audition for. It's something you inherit the moment you decide to stop handing it away. This is what healing looks like. Not perfect, not painless, but mine. A few weeks ago, I stood in front of the mirror and said my name out loud, Eva Marlowe. And for the first time, it didn't feel borrowed. It felt like mine, not because he gave it to me, but because I chose to keep it on my terms. I'm no longer trying to be the daughter he wanted. I'm the woman I needed, the woman I became the day I stopped begging to be loved and started remembering I always was just not by him. That was the day I took my power back. I spent years auditioning for love that was never mine to win. Turns out the moment I stopped performing was the moment I started becoming. Truth didn't break my family, it broke the illusion. And once that shattered, I could finally build something real. I'm not angry anymore, not waiting, not reaching. I am standing in my own story, uninvited, and still enough. What if the thing you're scared to say is the key to setting yourself free?